Hello there, and welcome to our literature series on YouTube brought to you by O3 Schools JAMB app. O3 Schools JAMB app is an app made for students to help them with adequate preparations for whatever examinations they have coming up, and the app is available for download on Play Store. All you have to do is download, activate, and you'll be able to get access to all the features the app has to offer. Now let's look at what we have for today, which is second class citizen. Second class citizen is a recommended text for literature in JAMB. So we're going to analyze it or look at what we'll appreciate it. In appreciating literary works, we look at, things like the mood, the tone, the plot, the theme, literary techniques used. That's how we appreciate literary texts. So let's start with second class citizen. First off, we look at the author. Second class citizen is a prose. So although the who write people that write prose can be called prosaists, mostly they are just called authors. So the author of second class citizen is Buchi Emecheta. And the book was published in 1974. Next, we now look at the setting. Setting has to do with time and location. So the book was set in both Lagos and the United Kingdom. So the book began in Lagos and then proceeds to the United Kingdom during the post-colonial era. So the setting is Lagos and the United Kingdom, and this time was after Nigeria gained independence. So the book was set in that time frame in Lagos and in the United Kingdom. So the book was set in that time frame in Lagos and in the United Kingdom. It began in Lagos, where the protagonist, which is Ada, was born and brought up, got married, gave birth to two children before she proceeds to the land of her dreams, which is UK, and that's where she spends most of her adult life. And all this took place during post-colonial era after Nigeria gained their independence. Then if you want to talk of characterization, so many characters in the novel. First off, you have Ada, the protagonist. We have Francis, her husband. Then you have Ada's parents. They are also Francis' parents. You have their kids. As well as other people that they meet along the way, like Mrs. Conrad was Ada's boss in her first job when she got to the UK. They had neighbors. Then we have Pa Noble, their landlord, at a particular point in time while they were in UK. We have Bill. We also have, so these are some characters in the book Second Class Citizen. Next, we look at the plot. The author uses a linear plot. Which means the sequence of events in the book or in the story follow a chronological order. That's what we mean by linear plot. We see first off Ada's early life as a child, wanting to get an education, despite the fact that as at that point in time, education was seen as something reserved for the boys. But Ada was determined and she was finally able to, begin school. She sneaked from home to school, which landed her mother in trouble with the police and then ultimately resulted in Ada going to school, even though that victory suffered a little defeat when her father died, and then she was forced to go live with her uncle who treated her like a slave. Her uncle and cousins treated her like a slave. She had to wake up early, do all the chores, but she still managed to finish her primary education, which then leaves the problem of her secondary education. Ordinarily, if you've managed to attend primary school as a girl, by the time you are done, the next step will be to get married. And this is especially needed in Ada's case because her mother wanted to use her bride price to continue the education of her brother. So they were expecting her to get married to a rich man and use the bride price to further her brother's education. But Ada had a different dream entirely. She liked to attend secondary school, and then she was able to go by stealing money to pay for the entrance examination, and then passing so well, she got herself a scholarship to sponsor her through her secondary education. And then see how chronological it is from the early life to her primary to her secondary, and then getting married. Ada decides to get married. Ordinarily, she would have liked to attend university, but as at that time, it was heavily frowned upon for teenagers to live alone, especially female, the female gender. So she had to get married if she was to continue her dream. Luckily, she got married to Francis and she was still able to continue her studies, which now gives her a she was still able to continue her studies. And then she got a job which paid more than her husband's. Her husband became insecure, and being one unable to make decisions for himself, he had to ask his father, who now tells him not to worry as long as the money is still coming into the family. Now, Ada making this money, she realizes that she can actually achieve her dreams, which is to go to the United Kingdom. And when she tells Francis about it, Francis wants to go first. So we see after getting married, she got a job, she gave birth to her first child, and then Francis, since by extension his father makes the decisions in the family, the father also backed him up, and that's how Francis left for the United Kingdom, leaving Ada back to work, support Francis in his education in the United Kingdom, support their children, because as at the point Francis was leaving, she discovered that she was pregnant again for their second child, and then she also supports Francis' family, like his extended family, the parents and his sisters. That was for getting married, and then the children being the breadwinner of the family. Then we now see Ada moving to the UK. So while Francis is abroad in the United Kingdom, Ada realizes that waiting for Francis to finish before she leaves will take like a longer time. She's impatient, she cannot wait for him to finish before she will achieve her own dream. First off, the dream was hers in the first place. She makes arrangements and then she moves to the United Kingdom with her children to join Francis, hoping that that was the land of her dreams, and then she will make, she will have a better life than she had in Nigeria, away from, overbearing in-laws, the in-laws interference and the rest. But then Ada was in for a rude shock because first off, she was shocked by the cold. The living arrangements that Francis had arranged for them. And then what was even more shocking was the fact that she now came to realize that in the United Kingdom, they were second class citizens because of their skin color. And Francis was totally accepting of the situation, not even trying to do anything to change it. As far as it's concerned, they are second class citizens and they should just accept it. Although Ada is not willing to accept such situation, she tries as much as possible to make the situation better. So from there, we see Ada struggling, getting pregnant, her troubles with getting pregnant with other children, her troubles with Francis, and then ultimately the dissolution of their marriage. When she could take it, when she couldn't stand the marriage any longer, she had to like leave. She left, and then finally a court dissolved her marriage to Francis. So you can see that the plot actually follows a chronological order, step by step, as it we were meant to, as it's supposed to go. That's the plot. Then we look at the theme. First off, we have discrimination, both gender and racial. This is like the predominant theme in the work second class citizen discrimination, gender and racial discrimination. First off, you see in Ada's early life, she faced gender discrimination because as at that time, the boy child was far superior to the girl child. In fact, people don't even they don't celebrate giving birth to a girl child because as far as they were concerned, especially in the Igbo land where the protagonist Ada is from, a male child is seen like four children in one, whereas a girl child is seen like, okay, we have a child. So first off, she faces gender discrimination from the early stage where she had to fight to get an education. She had to hide her dreams from people because she didn't want people to like laugh at her and then ultimately try to dissuade her, because as at that point in time, achieving goals, fulfilling purpose, living your dreams was something that was reserved exclusively for boys. While for girls, all you just had to do was to grow up, get a husband, and start producing children. Majorly, the girl child was mainly seen as a means to an end, just for procreation. So she faced gender discrimination early, and then racial discrimination when she moved to the United Kingdom, only to find out that there they were second class citizens because of their skin color. They faced racial discrimination with the way they were treated, especially we see it play out when with the kind of accommodation they had to live in, and even when they were evicted, it was really difficult getting a new accommodation because most of the ads carried no colors. You can imagine the ads carrying no color. So how do you get accommodation when most of the available ones didn't want colored people living with them? Luckily for them, they were able to get an accommodation in the house of a fellow immigrant like them. Now, this racial discrimination wasn't only faced by the protagonist. We see other Nigerian immigrants, as well as blacks from other countries, like we saw the case of a black Indian and the rest in the book. So the predominant theme is discrimination, both gender discrimination and racial discrimination. Next, we have gender roles. It's almost like a laid down rule, the role of the male and the female gender, even right from birth. Children are raised with that mindset of this is your role, this is a lady's role, this is a man's role. So most times, especially in the Igbo land where the protagonist is from, we find out that it is like the role of the men to provide, while it is the role of the women to, procreate and take care of the home front. But then we now see a reversal in Ada's marriage to Francis. Francis is content to be lazy and, live life as it comes, leaving Ada to be the breadwinner. We find out that first in Nigeria, Ada paid for his sister's school fees. She sends gifts to his parents. She takes care of his parents, and then she also takes care of the family. She was one paying the maids and all that. And Francis was also even content to go to the UK to school while Ada financed him, not even bothering to, assist in one way or the other. And we also find out that during the times that Ada was unable to work, probably after giving birth and she was at home, receiving maternal care or taking the required rest after giving birth, we see Francis grumbling simply because he had to work, grumbling and complaining about the stress he had to go through, as though he's not, the supposed to be the breadwinner according to the roles laid down, according to the roles that they grew up with. And even when a foil character in the form of Mr. Okpara was introduced and it was like trying to admonish Francis, Francis still refused. He's just not cut out for work. So we see the theme of gender roles playing out in second class citizen. Next, we have marital irresponsibility. This is especially demonstrated in Francis, Ada's husband, who is totally content to sit back and watch Ada take the lead as the breadwinner of the family. He's not even concerned about the amount of responsibilities she has to shoulder. As far as he's concerned, he just wants to live life stress free. So wherever the provision is coming from, he's not concerned as long as he's not being stressed for it. And as if that was not enough, that he was relying on a woman to take all the responsibilities in the family, he was also promiscuous. Apart from being promiscuous, he couldn't even help on the home front, taking care of the children. When Ada newly got to the United Kingdom and she had to look for a job to support them since Francis would not, for him to take care of the children while she was away, we find him complaining and even blaming the fact that he's taking care of the children as the reason for his failure. So all this grumbling, complaining led them to get a minder for the child, Trudy, for their children, who now even does not take care of the children well. So we see irresponsibility in Francis. No help at all. And okay, if he's not only is he not helping, he's also adding to the problems by being promiscuous, being blind to faults. So we see marital irresponsibility demonstrated in the character of Francis. Then we also see motherhood, the theme of motherhood. First off, in Ada's mother, we see the theme of motherhood playing out in the relationship between Ada and her mother, Ada and her mother-in-law, then Ada and her children. The theme of motherhood plays there. Ada's mother couldn't really be bothered. She was not really interested in following up with her own children, especially the girl child, Ada, compared to the way she took care of the male child boy. And then we see between Ada and her mother-in-law, there's a little bit of love. At least the love that she didn't get from her mother, she got from her mother-in-law to an extent. And then we see Ada going all out for her children, wanting to ensure that they get a good life. She wanted them to have education in the United Kingdom, and then she also wanted to protect them from Francis' bad influence. So we see Ada going all out to be a real mother to her children. So the theme of motherhood is really demonstrated in the book Second Class Citizen. Then we also have immigration. So the jackpot syndrome has been around for, longer than we think. Even as at that time, there was still this urge to migrate to the United Kingdom because it still felt like better opportunities were there than in Nigeria. For Ada, one thing that really stood out for her that made her want to go to migrate was in the treatment of the lawyer we see towards the beginning of the book, lawyer Wheezy. On his arrival, you see the entire women coming out to give him a royal welcome, practicing dances and all of that. Even the men too, planning something special for his arrival, all simply because he has been to the United Kingdom. And then we also see those that went there with the hope that by the time colonization is over, there will be lots of opportunities that will abound for those that were trained in the United Kingdom. So we see the theme of immigration right from as at that time. These are some of the themes in the second class citizen. Up next, we now look at the literary techniques used in the book. The book is filled with lots and lots of literary techniques from figures of speech to flashback and what have you, symbolism. First off, we look at the figures of speech. We find simile. An example is where the book tells us that the first time Ada earned her salary while she was still in Nigeria, her husband had to leave work to come and protect her. We see the sentence, they held the, let's see, they carried the bag of money like a delicate baby. Can see the simile there, comparison of money and baby using like. Then there's also metaphor. An example is the sentence, Francis' mind was a fertile ground. Dash dash dash, whatever the sentence is, in which such attributes. So where we are going to is just the metaphor here. Francis' mind was a fertile ground. So there's no use of as or like, just directly calling his mind a fertile ground. So we see the metaphor there. Even irony. We see lots of ironies, especially situational irony in the character of Noble. Imagine someone named Noble when his actions are anything but. So we see that there. And even Francis, we see Francis admonishing Ada about being hardworking and wanting to laze around at home while he's doing the same thing. Then you are advising her, telling her about being a virtuous woman and all whatnot. So we see that situational irony even in the character of Francis. Then that brings us also to allusion, both biblical, historical, and literary. We see it play out in the book Second Class Citizen. Biblical allusion. They were Christians, so lots of biblical allusions. Then historical, we see references made to past events in especially the Igbo land where Ada is from, and even literary. We see the author Buchi mentioning other, art, other literary works, especially when she was talking about her mentor and an author she would really like to emulate. We see all of these allusions in the book. Then there's symbolism, foreshadowing. Here we see the presence. She uses the presence as a symbol for, a kind of guide, something guiding the protagonist, Ada. So we see all of these literary techniques in second class citizen. So now we answer some questions, some jam pass questions on the work second class citizen. For her act of neglect, Ada's mother was forced by the police to A. Taste raw and black pepper, B. Sleep in solitary cell, C. Drink a bowl of gari, and D. Pay a fine of 10 shillings. In the book, we see that Ada's mother was made to drink a bowl of gari and she had to finish it. So here we have Panobo became a living legend because A. Several conflicting stories were woven around him. He attained the status of a first class citizen. He was the only successful son of a Benin chief. He was very rich and generous. In the book, we see Panobo as a Nigerian that immigrated to the United Kingdom. And yes, he was the son of a Benin chief, but the part about successful, nope. So he got there after having miscalculated about how much he would need. And then instead of, trying to see what he could do, we find him making bad choices, which thankfully he was able to come back from and get a house before everything totally collapsed around him. So the correct answer here is A. Several conflicting stories were woven around him. Whether it was true or not, the stories were just being passed round. Then we have Now, this question says the marriage of Ada and Francis collapsed because of A. Ada's unfaithfulness, B. The influence of British culture, C. Ada's desire for personal fulfillment, and D. External pressure on the couple. So, our answer here is Ada's desire for personal fulfillment. A. Ada's unfaithfulness. We didn't get any record of that on the book. Ada was not unfaithful to her husband Francis, rather, the opposite was the case. And then the influence of the British culture and external pressure on the couple. We wouldn't say this didn't have effect on the marriage, but the major cause of the collapse was Ada's desire for personal fulfillment. She had a dream and she knew that continuing with Francis, she was not going to get anywhere. At least she was finally able to see that Francis was like a bitter person that didn't want to, grow, and he was jealous of Ada's own growth. So he didn't want to, let's say he didn't want to succeed, and he didn't want Ada to also succeed. So we see the marriage collapsing finally when he burns Ada's manuscript, her very first novel. So when he burns it, that is the last straw. Ada can take it no more. And that is when she left with her children. Next we have so here we have Ada's sojourn in London reveals that A. Marriage is an equal partnership between spouses. Her marriage improves. Francis is a hardworking man. The plight of the black woman doesn't change. Here, marriage is an equal partnership between spouses. We do not see that in the story because most of the time Ada was the one pulling her weight, and we see Francis complaining the few times that he had to, take up the responsibility while she recuperates her health after giving birth. We see Francis complaining. He wouldn't work, but he would want that the money they have be spent on him, not even minding the children. So the marriage definitely wasn't an equal partnership between them. And then her marriage improves. It does not. We see them going through, problems after problems after problems until Ada finally had to leave. Then Francis is a hardworking man. This sentence can be, like an oxymoron. Francis, hardworking, those are like two opposing words. If they were coming together, we would say, okay, this is an example of an oxymoron. Francis was not a hardworking man. And then we see the plight of the black woman doesn't change. That becomes the answer. The plight of the black woman doesn't change. First off, you're a woman, then you're black, and in the case of Ada, she was also poor. So we see that the plight just keeps what getting worse. You keep having to fight and fight and fight. So that's what Ada's sojourn in London reveals to us. So like I said, these are some questions pulled out from the O3 Schools JAMB app. Do well to download the app, activate, and get answers to more past questions that you can use to study and improve yourself. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.